Oh Lord, we have just walked through a season of words, and so we are hungry for words that will satisfy, not to lead to hatred. We're hungry for words, O Lord, that will bring life. We're hungry, O Lord, for words that will give us hope and keep us from despair. So we give you thanks for your word and for your holy scriptures. And we pray that your Spirit move in and through them and in and through our hearts, that we might hear your word revealed through them. To this end, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of each one of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So I'm taking two passages from the lectionary. We've been staying with the Gospel of Luke an awfully long time, so I intended to do that as well, and then looked at the Isaiah passage and thought, well, this seems timely as well. From Isaiah, we're reading from what's known as 3rd Isaiah. That's the end of the words from the prophet after all devastation has been brought down upon the people when they thought things could get no worse. God says there's a vision of a new day where violence will reign no more. And so that is where we pick up in Isaiah 65, and I'll be reading verses 17 through 25. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy, and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and the one who falls short of 100 will be considered cursed. They shall build houses and live in them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build another, and another inhabit. They shall not plant, and another eat. For like the days of the tree shall be, the days of my people and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, or bear children for calamity. For they shall be offspring, blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. And the wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like an ox. They shall not hurt or destroy on my holy mountain, says the Lord. And then from the Gospel of Luke. Jesus is in Jerusalem, and he's talked about a new day, and the disciples, frankly, are baffled about how the current order will ever change, and this is what happens. When some were speaking about the temple and how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another, all will be thrown down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will this be, and what will be the sign that is about to take place?" And Jesus said, "Beware that you are not led astray, for many will come in my name and say, 'I am he.' And the time is near. Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified. For these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately." And then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you, and they will hand you over to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance, for I will give you words, and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents, and there'll be some who will put you to death. You will be hated by many because of my name, but not a hair on your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So I feel like I need to say something about the whole persecution part first. Because many of our brothers and sisters have believed that they have been persecuted for a long time, and so many of them on this day are celebrating and believe these texts refer to them and their struggles over cups and prayers. But if there's anything out of that to be heard on this day, or any day, frankly, it's not to be terrified. Terrified people act badly, as we have seen. What should you say on a week like this? I got that call from 3 younger pastors. I was surprised, and I thought, you think I have something to share? Mostly we all came up with the same thing. We just needed to talk to somebody else. To wrestle together. To remind each other that the biblical text is not one that ends with despair, but with hope. So let me tell you how I plan to end my sermon so we can work our way to it. Because I think I've got something. I think going forward from this day forward, it's probably not all that new, but it's been brought to a fine point that there are 3 things I believe we are called to do as followers of Jesus. 1, love. 2, organize. And 3, resist. Love. As followers of Jesus, anything which is not grounded in the love of God in Jesus Christ is not our calling and is not fruit of the tree of Jesus Christ. We have not been called to hate. We have not been called to hate. We've been called to love. And love that causes pain is not love. We've been called to love each other, one another in this space, our neighbors, and those who have particularly been left out and turned into objects of scorn and hatred. That's love. And then we need to organize, because as Dr. King said, those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. And then there are times when we must resist. When we must resist anything that is not grounded in love, anything which breeds hatred, anything which is not rooted in loving justice, we must resist. Anything which calls us to compromise with those who question the humanity of others, we must resist. Love, organize, resist. And who thought we couldn't put Presbyterian theology on a bumper sticker? I think I might have. How did I get here? Well, I've talked to many of you and talked to many others. I probably was despairing for about 3 days, even though nobody actually heard it other than those most close to me. But I came to the conclusion that we cannot afford to despair. We can't do it. It does nothing but grind us down, and then we become cynical. Because all we have to do is open our eyes, and we know, we have seen, we've been talking, we have seen this coming. People have been emboldened in their racism and hatred for other people. 200 so far that the Southern Poverty Law Center has recorded hate-filled activities, then put the President-elect's name on top of things. We hear of students at Ladue High School who have been tormented on a bus. Now let me say this really clearly. I will not say that everyone who voted for President-elect Trump is a racist. Because I am sure that there are plenty of racists who voted for Secretary Clinton. They just weren't public about their racism. But we have to talk about it because there's violence going on and people are being targeted. And it's troubling for many people who I've talked to who said that for the first time in a long time, they no longer feel safe in their skin because of the color of their skin, or their sexual orientation, or their religious clothing. And as followers of Jesus Christ, we have to stand up. Now, I'm not interested in doing a post-mortem on the election. I'll do that over coffee, and we can talk politics then. But as a follower of Jesus, we have to say something. I have to say something, because 81% of white evangelicals supported a candidate who inspired alt-right groups. These are hate groups, the Klan and others. 81% of our brothers and sisters who claim faith in Jesus Christ said, yeah, that's all right. It was important to know that if you did not vote for the president-elect, as a Christian, as a white Christian, you are in a very small minority. So how did our brothers and sisters in faith, and yes, sisters, 53% of them, cast their lot with someone who inspired so much hate? It turns out that their desire as followers of Jesus to end abortion, to end what they believed was an assault on their faith, and rolling back marriage equality took precedence over all the other things. This looks as though they finally overcome any concern about personal morality of a candidate, which has often been historically so important. I listened to the candidate for a long time, many of you did too, who talked about walls and keeping out Mexican rapists, about immediately deporting millions of illegal immigrants, who continually referred to women based on a scale of 1 to 10 based on looks, or jokingly bragged about assaulting women. Yeah, it's just words. He referred to war heroes as losers, black protesters as thugs, and suggested to crowds here in St. Louis that the problem in America is that we can't knock the crap out of people who protest because the police hands are tired. It's on tape. I'm not making it up. He's also proud of his support of torture, of waterboarding and stuff way worse, quote unquote. But apparently these things are not a concern for our brothers and sisters in the faith, even though Jesus was tortured. But we are told, you know what? They're just words. He didn't mean them. Politics is a dirty business, and he didn't mean all that. After all, he's already backpedaling. All politicians lie. The problem is that too many people took his freewheeling language to heart and are now acting on it. That means we cannot remain silent. Anyone who does from this point forward is complicit in the violence, period. USA Today said, since the election, we've seen a big uptick in incidents of vandalism, threats, intimidation, spurred by the rhetoric sounding Mr. Trump's election. Richard Cohen, president of the Southern Poverty Law Center in Alabama, said, quote unquote, the white supremacists out there are celebrating his victory and are feeling their oats, end quote. Alt-right groups, Klansmen and other racist nationalist organizations and groups were inspired to join in the struggle to regain a past that they never lived. And none of this is news to any of us. We all know it. That's why I've spent the week talking to folks who are devastated. Some who are shocked, some who are scared, and some who are angry. Wherever you are today is okay. Feel what you need to feel. So what do we say? What do we do? Well, that brings me back to the words of the prophet. That vision. Remember the vision from the prophet? Where the wolf and the lamb, they're going to hang out together, eat together, and not eat one another. where the predators will not take their power off over another person. That's the image that Christianity leans on. The people who heard these words lived in a time that frankly was way worse than any of us have ever experienced. God says, I'm going to do a new thing. But in the passage before it, and in the chapters before it, which I didn't have time to read because we'd still be reading them, God goes into saying that injustice, inequality, violence, and death will come to an end. But not only that, those who are responsible for the injustice will be called to account. And then it is those who have been pushed to the margins who will be the repairers of the breach, who will rebuild the cities. Oh no, that sounds like good news to me. God is calling us to be part of the new thing that is happening. But if you're not ready for the new thing, hang on to the vision until you are. Trust me, I'm not pushing you out of any space where you are this morning. If you need time, take that time. But if you're ready, it's time to move. God is doing a new thing, and you're called to be part. And going back to our sacred text is important instead of taking someone else's word for it. The gospel believes in its heart that words matter. Beginning of John. In the beginning was the Word. Word. And you know what happened in Genesis? God speaks, and the world is created. Words matter. Because words create worlds, and the world that we're living in right now was created by words. So our words matter, and what we say has implications. And as people of faith declaim, rather just words, that is blasphemy. It's heretical. It is unbiblical. And we should be prepared to call every politician, whether we voted for that person or not, to account. Even our friends. In the face of overwhelming odds, the disciples stood at the temple. The large stones, but even more important was the huge bureaucracy that had been created within the temple state to wring every last dollar out of the poor and those on the margins. Economic injustice was written into the design of what had become, and the disciples looked at it and thought, okay, Jesus, bring down your angels, because there's nothing we can do about this of the age. Don't buy it. You have no idea what is to come. Last week, everyone was talking about this idea that maybe Tuesday's the end of the world. And I caught myself thinking, yes, we could pull out all the apocalyptic texts and say, yes, it's coming, it's coming. But here Jesus is like, that stuff's going to happen, but that's not it. Remember, Jesus said something about coming like a thief in the night when it's quiet. It's not going to come. It's not going to come with the kind of fanfare we've had this week. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult not to fall into the places of despair. So here's a suggestion. Reach out to somebody else. Somebody else who you know might just give you that word that you need. You're here. You're not hiding. Because when we fall into the trap of fear, we will act out of our fear and terror, and terrified people have a hard time being faithful. So don't be terrified, and do not despair. And that can be way easier to say than to do. Ultimately, we are a deeply divided country. Just less than half of all the eligible voters went to the polls. I'll give you a minute on that one. But those who did, roughly 60 million, didn't vote for the candidate who received endorsements from hate groups. Say that again. 60 million people in the country did not vote for a candidate who received endorsements from hate groups. We are not alone. 60 million. And it turns out that most of the people who voted didn't actually vote for the soon-to-be sitting president. That actually ought to be a little encouraging. And this is not commentary on the Electoral College. What it says is, we're not alone. So if you need something concrete today to keep you from the area of despair and frustration and fear, hang on to that, because what it means is we're not alone. We're really split right down the middle. But I believe common ground will be hard to find. But it's not a bad place to start. Remembering how many didn't vote for the candidate who was endorsed by hate. So what do we do? For some, I believe it will mean a recommitment to live out our calling to follow Jesus Christ. Sometime about Friday, I found a renewed energy that I hadn't had for a while. I'm hoping that at some point each one of you will too. For others, it means getting up and joining in the struggles that are already at work. Today, there's even 2 opportunities. Seriously. You could go downtown at 2 o'clock today. 2 places to be at 2 o'clock, so you've got to make a decision. 2 o'clock down at City Garden, there is a post-election protest. Folks are going to vent frustration and anger, and so that might be a place where you go. Now, I know you all well enough that maybe a few of you, but most of you will not. But if that isn't for you, today at 3 p.m., doors open at 2, so that's why the 2. Activists, educators, politicians, students, and concerned citizens will continue their work to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline. You can be part of something concrete. Some of our members already are. Today, the focus is on alternatives to out-of-school suspension. So if that's something you could see yourself connected with, Maplewood Richmond Heights High School gym at 3 p.m. and the doors open at 2. Concrete things that we can be part of. Something. Now maybe that's not going to be where you plug in, and I understand that. But let me say this. I believe each one of us has to figure out a way to plug in. That's the resistance piece, the love piece, the organizing piece. Otherwise, we will fall into the trap of believing we're all alone. We'll fall into the trap of fear and despair, or worse yet, cynicism. As someone who gets labeled a cynic an awful lot, let me tell you, it's no fun to be. If you are unsure what to do next, I want to do something and I do not know, let me suggest something from one of my favorite historical figures, Mother Jones. She said lots of things. I bet you haven't heard this quote though, I'm guessing. And I think this might be where some of us need to be. This was the quote she said. Sit down and read. Prepare yourself for the struggles. I believe we need to spend some time educating ourselves, remembering that we're not the first people to cross this path, that things haven't always been as good as we'd like to think, and they're not as bad as we think they are now, but we need to be prepared. We need to educate ourselves, and as followers of Jesus, I'll say this, it is critical that we come to know the stories of our faith even better. Why? We're in the minority if we're white. 81% of our brothers and sisters believe the Bible led them to endorse a candidate who was endorsed by hate groups. Now that should not come as a shock. Why? Well, we're part of the Southern Presbyterian Church. And the theology developed by our foreparents undergirded the institution of slavery in this country. They did. They believed every week that they went to church and were faithful, and then they owned people. So we can't be too surprised when people of faith act in ways we think they've lost their ever-loving minds. Some of my professors at Columbia said they believed that because they grew up in a Southern Presbyterian church that did not want their liberalism, their interpretation of the scriptures around, it taught them to be better at it instead of ignoring them. Somebody asked me, what are you thinking about this week? And I said, Daniel. I'm not going to preach on Daniel right now, I promise you. That's a whole other sermon. But how did I get there? Because somebody beat that into my head for a really long time, and I figured out, oh, that's a passage about how to live faithfully when you're not in charge. It's not just about the fiery furnace. But we have to know our stories to know that they were also liberating stories. The stories where God says no to the pharaohs of this earth and brings the entire economy of Egypt to a grinding halt, then pays reparations to the slaves, it's right in there in the text, before he sets them free. They say, take our gold and please go away. That's the part we don't often preach on, the reparations piece. But the Bible is full of these liberating stories that say death does not have the last word, but that's not even the first place. God has acted before, and we can trust and believe that. So that when people of faith use our stories, I'll get back to my text now. So when people of faith use our stories to undergird oppression or even hatred or justify overlooking injustice, we can say, oh, no, the Bible doesn't really say that. Let's have a conversation about that. Instead of just giving up on our sacred texts. And then we need to learn who's already doing the organizing. Because friends, there's a lot of people in this town who are doing some really amazing work. And you don't have to be there all the time, but even a little support, even a little learning can be a huge thing. And join them when we can. And if we can't, figure out how to financially support them. To give up our bodies and our prayers as well. Which brings me back to where I started, where I said I would end. I think we do need to reclaim this mantle, this calling of love, organizing, and resistance. Anything that is not rooted in the love of Jesus Christ that we know through the Scriptures is not our calling. So we must resist. We have not been called to love. We've not been called to fear. We've been called to love, not to hate. So it's why if I was to show up at 2 o'clock downtown, and I won't today, I can't join the calls to say F Trump, because that's feeding more hatred. But I'm thankful for the organizers who are taking that energy and saying, okay, guess what? There's groups of organizers over here. Let's channel that energy for good, because without energy, nothing's going to happen. So I'm not throwing those folks under the bus. But our love has to always look for those folks who feel unsafe, who have been unfairly targeted, and who are objects of hatred and scorn. And there are plenty right now, and that is our calling, to love. But we cannot do it by ourselves, and we do not have to. That is why we organize. And I think Dr. King made it make the most sense. Those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. Those who love justice, those who love have to figure out how to organize more effectively than those who have learned to govern by stoking the fears and hatred of others. We cannot just vote. We cannot just repost political postings on Facebook to vent our rage or to tweet our rage. And yes, taking to the streets is important, but it is one tactic. We have to organize with others, with neighbors, with folks who are already out there in ways that we may never get credit for, but we are part of the struggle bigger than ourselves. Look for common ground and grow the movement, but always based on love. And then resist. When necessary, we must be prepared to resist. Anything that is not grounded in love, we must resist. Anything that breeds hatred, we must resist. Anything that is not rooted in loving justice, we must resist. And anything which calls us to compromise with those who would question the humanity of others, we must resist. Love. Organize. Resist. You may not be ready. The good news is, this will pass, and there will be fights to come. We do not know at this point what's going to happen, and we can get ourselves wound up about every possibility that may come along the way. Do not let it happen. Read, learn, educate, prepare, organize, love, do these things. And on your worst days, when you are feeling like you need to go into a hole, call somebody. Reach out to somebody in this room or your circle that you know will lift you up. Even if you won't feel lifted up, they'll still be there. Some of you remember Emma Dobson, former intern, now pastor at Calvary Church. When we talked this week, by text message, because that's what introverts do, and we went back and forth about what we might be saying on this day, I said, I'm not sure I've gotten to the stage where I'm doing nothing more than encouraging others not to despair. That was Thursday. And she said, yeah, that's probably true. So here's something else you can do. If you're finding yourself ground down, find somebody to inspire even if you aren't feeling it. Because guess what? In the process, you find the hope, the spark that is there. I spent 3 days encouraging people not to despair, and I wasn't sure that I believed it wholeheartedly, but every one of those people who walked away went away encouraged, and in their encouragement, I received encouragement. So let that be our call. Wherever you are on this day, disappointment, fear, uncertainty, anger, uncertainty, despair, whatever it is, wherever you are, know this, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. The world did not come to an end. But maybe, just maybe, our calling got a little bit more clear. Amen.